there's this ancient Christian group labeled the Desert Saints. They flourished in the 4th and 5th century. They're a peculiar group, and they believed that struggle, that it was a normal part of life. In fact, they would even say it's a necessary aspect. In fact, they would even go one step further and say, as Christians, it is necessary and it is healthy for our spiritual lives to face struggle. Now, the fallenness of the world, it just imposes struggle on us. Things like our physical health or mental turmoil or death of loved ones, things that we are all too familiar in today's world. But also, the discipleship, it imposes us on it, self-sacrifice. And we talked a little bit about that last week. And as believers, we must embrace it. You see, we can't escape the struggles of this world. No matter how hard we try, we have to learn to take and embrace struggle as a part of our discipleship. As being followers of Jesus, we know struggle is just around the corner. You see, the goal of life in this world is not prosperity or ease or success, as we so often believe it is. No, instead, the goal of life in this world is intimacy with God. It's maturity of character, and it's our influence in the world. 3 things that we can work on in the midst of the chaos that we are ensuing right now. And it's 3 things that we have been called to do as Christians. In fact, Jesus even said as much when he said, every day you have to take up your cross, you have to carry it, and you have to follow me. So let's talk about that first one, intimacy with God. You see, intimacy is the experience of knowing somebody and being known by them. And this isn't a spatial thing, it's a relational thing. It's why you can be quarantined from everybody that you love, but you can still feel close to them. And we can have this same kind of relationship with God as well. Like our closeness, our nearness to God is not determined by his proximity with us, but it's determined by the intimacy that we have with him. Our ability and the capability we have to know God and how he knows us. And God, he knows you. One of my favorite Psalms, Psalm 139:13, says, God, you know my inmost being. In fact, God, you knitted me in my mother's womb. So how do we solidify this intimacy with God? Well, first, we have to spend time with him, both in prayer and in word. We have to carve and sacrifice time out of our day to spend time with God. We have to pick a text and a place and a time to do this, preferably every day, to spend time with him so we can know him more. And then second, we have to trust in him. We have to trust in his promises, his great and wonderful promises for us. We have to trust that God is on our side and he's caring for us and he's watching over us. We have to seek him and we have to pursue him. So the second one is maturity in Christ. We are seeing the best of people and the worst of people these days. I know you've experienced grocery stores that have been hoarded and social media rants and people not taking the precautions to take care of other people. And all of a sudden, Paul's commands to not walk by the flesh, but to walk by the Spirit, to not gratify the desires of the flesh, they become all too relevant in today's world, in our circumstances. You see, being mature in Christ means learning to reflect and mirror the image of Christ. So the question, are you living the way Jesus would live if he was alive today? Like if Jesus was walking and talking, are your actions and your thoughts the same that Jesus would have throughout the coronavirus? You see, mature Christians, they don't idly wait around for God to do something inside of them, but instead they take up the call to do and make every effort to pursue after God and to actively love those around him. We have to be mature in Christ. And finally, number 3, our influence in the world. The world is always looking to see how Christians will respond to various events that happen in the world. And the coronavirus, it is no different. Now is the time to make a positive impact on our neighbors and the community and the world as a whole and how we react and what we do. You are the salt of the earth, Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5. But if the salt loses its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? You are the light of the world, a city on the hill. It can't be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house in the same way. Let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. So 3 things to work on this week. Our intimacy with God, the maturity of our character, and our influence into the world. You see, there's many ways that we can't relate to the desert saints and the lifestyles they chose. But the struggles that they faced, they're all too similar to the struggles we face today. Like, we too must fight against the world and the ways of the world. We too must battle and resist the temptation that lives inside of us. We too must fight the darkness within and the persistent egoism that rests on all of our hearts. And the desert saints, they challenge us to face all of these temptations and to face all of these struggles squarely. And by doing it, by entering into the desert, a place where we are stripped of our securities, of all distractions, of all our comforts, where we must meet both the darkness, but we also might meet the living God there as well. Could this be our desert? Could the times and the darkness that we live in today, could it be our desert, a moment when we can face both the darkness and meet the living God within it? Embrace the struggle. You see, heroic feats, they are subtle in comparison to the daily and subtle and deliberate choices we make every day to submit ourselves to God. And what the desert does, what moments like this in our world today, what they do is it forces us to hold our appetites in check, to resist temptations, and to seek after the living God. So here are some practices that can help you throughout this week. One is read Luke chapter 4, verses 1 through 13. Read it as a family, read it by yourself in the morning, read it over and over again. Use the text even as a prayer and as a reflection of your own life. Second, commit yourself to fasting. I know there's a lot of things we're already being stripped from, but take something that is distracting you, that might be pulling your attention and your heart away from God in these moments. Maybe it's social media, maybe it's the news, maybe it's just keeping up with the coronavirus and all the bad news involved in it. Fast from that and use that time, that tension that you feel, use it to just quiet your mind and your soul and to spend time with God. And then finally, number 3 is find 1 or 2 scriptures to memorize and repeat those verses over and over and over again in your mind so that when you need them later on, they will come back and you can repeat them in your mind because you've memorized them and you've written them on your heart. We're praying for you guys. If there's any way that we can help you, please email the office, call us up here, leave a voicemail. We are here for you. We love you, and we can't wait until we all meet back again. God bless.